Hello everyone, this is Leah Whitehorse from Lua Astrology, and in this recording I'm going to be talking about the astrology for February 2020. So it's already been quite a ride. I'm actually recording this on the 11th of January 2020, so a month before many of you will be listening to this. And certainly the year has started with a bang, which is what we anticipated, what we expected with the Saturn-Pluto conjunction in Capricorn, the massive build-up of planets in Capricorn. If you are interested, I wrote an article on my website linking many of the world's events that have been going on. For example, all of the war talk, the potential of World War III starting with Iran and the US, talking about Harry and Meghan, talking about the Australia fires. So all of this has become very inflamed, or the situations have been very inflamed whilst we've had this huge build up in Capricorn. Now, as we move into February, the picture is that some of that Capricorn energy is beginning to dissipate, but we are still going to have the influence of Saturn conjunct Pluto all year. It's going to be a background influence for the entire year. There's just a brief period of about 2 weeks in May when Saturn and Pluto will be out of orb of a conjunction with one another. But apart from that time, it's there for the duration. So we are going to have this general background feeling that there are some serious issues going on, serious changes that need to happen, taking responsibility. Maybe it feels a bit hard work as well, but that's okay, because sometimes life requires that we work hard, that we face what we need to face, that we strengthen ourselves for the next chapter. So at the beginning of February, the first major movement that is going on here is that Mercury is going to move into the shadow zone of the next upcoming retrograde. So we're going to be having a retrograde soon as well. So the meaning of this, because some people are a bit unsure about what the shadow period means. So basically what's going to happen is that on the 2nd of February, Mercury will meet up with the degree in the astrological chart where he will finish his upcoming retrograde period. So he's basically starting to cross over this territory where he will be revisiting a bit later down the line. The shadow period just kind of means that we need to be conscious, we need to be mindful. We need to be mindful that we are going to maybe start getting into some situations where maybe things aren't quite as clear as we would like them to be. We're not sure, maybe we've got a decision to make and we're not quite sure what's going to happen there. And so anything from the 2nd of February onwards, it's possible that we will be revisiting this material at some point. On the 3rd of February, Mercury will then move into Pisces. So part of the retrograde period will occur in Pisces. In fact, we had a Pisces Mercury retrograde last year at the beginning of the year. So there might be some echoes. There won't be the same degrees that Mercury is covering, but there might be some echoes of what was going on at the beginning of last year. It seems, as far as the cosmos are concerned, that we really do need to get in touch with our intuition. We need to let our intuition lead a little bit more when Mercury is in Pisces, because Pisces is a very fluid, spiritual, intuitive sign. It's actually a sign that Mercury struggles in. It's considered in old astrology that this is the sign of Mercury's detriment and fall. So these words kind of feel a bit negative. If you have Mercury in Pisces in your natal chart, that doesn't mean that you aren't intellectual and you can't communicate and your mind doesn't work. It's not meant like that. It just simply means that you are somebody who needs to perhaps be more connected to your intuition. The way you think is very creative. In fact, I've seen a lot of people who have Mercury in Pisces who are great writers, great artists, great communicators in many ways, because of the way they communicate is very compassionate and very kind. So Mercury enters Pisces on the 3rd of February. It's going to spend a little bit extra time in this sign, although part of the retrograde period will also be in Aquarius as well. So it's still going to have a bit longer in Pisces. And for all of us, we do need to be really including our intuition when it comes to our decision making. And also, because Pisces is a sign that I associate with silence, again, if we think of it being a very spiritual sign, we think of holy places like the quietness of a church, the silence of the forest, anywhere that is a kind of sanctuary, we think of it as a quiet place. So maybe we need to be quiet to really hear what is going on within ourselves, but also what's going on in the world out there. Sometimes we just need to listen. Generally speaking, whilst Mercury is in Pisces, some activities that are very good ways of using this energy are, for example, creative work and spirituality. So if you are a writer, then you can be dipping into the collective pool of the unconscious when Mercury is in Pisces, coming up with some fabulous imagery. It's a really good time to write poetry, write lyrics, write music. Write down your dreams, because the dreams that we have can be communicating with us during this time. It's also very good for practicing meditation, mindfulness meditation, mantra meditation, whatever kind of meditation takes you to that place. This is a period where it's really good to quiet down the mind, so that you can really get to grips with what is going on within yourself. Venus enters Aries on the 7th of February 2020. So Venus has previously been going through Pisces, a sign where she's exalted. And Pisces is very soft and sensitive. But going into Aries, Aries is a fire sign. It's fast moving, it's very brave and courageous. So we get quite a switch in how we approach things such as our relationships, money, self-esteem, the things that we value, the things that are pleasurable to us. So some of the ways that this might manifest is that we become more courageous and assertive about going after what we want. We might get the courage up to ask someone out on a date, for example, or tell someone that we like them. The interesting thing is that this sign, Aries, is a very independent sign though. So even if we get really excited and interested in a relationship, or we want to spice up our current relationship, there is also a very feisty need to retain our independence. We value independence when Venus is in Aries, so that's very important as part of this transit. In fact, this is one of the reasons that Venus is considered to be uncomfortable in the sign of Aries, because Aries is so independent and go-getting and kind of thinking of itself. Whereas, of course, in relationships, we need to be thinking about the other person. We need to be compromising. And Aries is not really the sign that would like to compromise too much. So that is where sometimes we can have some difficulty with Venus in Aries. The other thing is that Venus in Aries wants everything quickly, because Aries is a fast-moving sign. So what can happen is that we get really, really excited about someone or something that we want to go for because we're really attracted to that situation. But if it's not reciprocated, we can get really angry and frustrated, or it can just fizzle out as quickly as it started. So we just need to be aware of that as well. Now, as Venus also rules money, the other thing, thinking of Aries being a fast moving sign, is that we can spend money quickly. This is an impulse spending transit. So again, it's just about being aware. If you see something that you want and it's like, it's got to be now, see if you can just give yourself a few days, because like everything with Venus and Aries, what seems really attractive in the moment might not be so attractive later down the line. Another way of tuning into Venus in Aries is to do some self-love practices, especially if you've been struggling with kind of asserting your needs in a relationship, or you've just been feeling down on yourself, or you've got money issues, you have a problem with handling money or getting money or asking for a raise, anything like that. This would be an excellent time to really work on your self-esteem and your self-compassion. The next major movement of February 2020 is that we are going to have a full moon in Leo. So this takes place on the 9th of February. So the full moon in Leo really accentuates our creativity, our playfulness. We kind of need attention when the moon is in Leo. So sometimes that can create some tension with others, because the sun is over there in Aquarius, which is a symbol for groups and networks and friends. So we might have to try to balance our own personal kind of creative needs with the needs of other people. But generally speaking, it is a time for us to get excited about life, to allow ourselves to shine. This is about getting in touch with your inner king or queen, your sovereignty, and putting yourself forward, taking a risk sometimes. Leo is very good at taking risks. It just goes for it because it has that childlike element to it. So take a few more risks in life. Sometimes we need to take a risk in life to get life moving again, especially as this full moon will actually trine Mars, go-getting Mars up there in Sagittarius, which is very adventurous. So we've really got to push to get excited about life and allow ourselves to take that center stage, to step into the spotlight and take the risk to be ourselves. Now, speaking of Mars, on the 9th of February, Mars is going to go out of bounds. So what this means is that Mars is going beyond the path of the sun. The path of the sun is called the ecliptic. It's the apparent path that the sun draws through the sky as it moves through the sky day by day. So when planets go too far above or too far below this invisible line in the air, the ecliptic, we say that they are kind of off the field of play. So therefore, they don't have to follow the normal rules. Now, the excellent astrologer Stephen Forrest has done quite a lot of work and spoken a lot about out of bounds planets. And one of the ways he describes it is that because the planet is not bound by the rules anymore, it can either come up with genius solutions to problems and work in genius ways, or because it's breaking the rules, it can have this sort of criminal element to it. So Mars is about our goals and drive and will and passions and our energy. So when Mars is out of bounds, the way we do things, the way we go after what we want, is likely to have a bit more of a wild element to it. And like I say, it's possible we might find that there are some sort of sudden inspirations about how we can get something done or how we can achieve a goal. But it's very important, I think, around this time to be conscious of that impulsive nature of Mars and this sense of not playing by the rules anymore, that we may find that our anger or frustration could lead us down a path that we wouldn't have gone down otherwise. We just need to, again, always be mindful. Mars is out of bounds until the 2nd of March. On the 14th of February, Venus will square the North and the South node. So the North node is our evolution. It represents the place we need to go for our soul's growth. It's currently in the sign of Cancer, which is very nurturing and domestic and talks of emotional support and kindness. And the South node is currently in Capricorn, which is a sign which is associated with professionalism, work, reputation. It's a much less emotional sign. So we can see just from the North and the South nodes being in these signs that we are moving towards a softer, more feminine expression, embracing the divine feminine, moving away from some of the structures and the rules and the patriarchy associated with Capricorn. Now, with Venus square to the North and the South nodes, what happens when a planet is square to the nodes is that it indicates there is some kind of missed step. Something hasn't been done that needs to be done so that we can move forwards. Now, earlier I was saying about how Venus in Aries is an excellent time to practice self-love. And so this is really being accentuated now. We need to know how to love ourselves. We need to know how to love ourselves so that we can become a family. This is the North node in Cancer, so that we can love each other, in other words. On the 15th of February, Uranus and Chiron will form a semi-sextile between one another. Now, this is actually the 23rd semi-sextile out of a series of 26. This has been going on since January 2009, and it will actually finish in May 2021. It's a long background influence, and even though it's a semi-sextile, it's very important. The skies are telling us it's important because of the number of times it's repeating over and over and over and over again. So what is it that we're trying to learn from this particular aspect? Well, Uranus is currently in the sign of Taurus. So Taurus is about stability, things being the same, old-fashioned methods. It's also connected with farming and the natural world. And Uranus has come along into Taurus, and it's saying this needs to change. Something in our environment, in our land, in our food needs to change, because Uranus is a revolutionary awakener. It is a planet that is associated with advancement, progress. That's what it's interested in. And it frees us. Ultimately, it frees us and it liberates us. So one of the ways, for example, that Uranus in Taurus is manifesting is the continued explosion in veganism and changing the way we think about farming, how we use the land, and so on. So this is just one way. There's other ways as well, but I think that in particular has been a very, very strong story whilst Uranus has been in Taurus. And Chiron in Aries says that we need to heal, so that's Chiron, through action, so that's Aries. Now, Chiron is half man, half horse, and I have noticed just kind of in the last few months or so, I've really started to think of Chiron as being a very big player in environmental issues, because He is half man, half horse. So he represents that union between the natural world and humankind. Chiron is very present in, for example, Greta Thunberg's charts and the chart of David Attenborough. Both of them have prominent Chirons. So we've got the kind of warrior element with Chiron being in Aries, a warrior for the planet and environmental issues, and Uranus in Taurus, changing the way we use the land. On a personal level, we have the idea of Uranus in Taurus as saying that for all of us somewhere in our lives, we need to make some changes to things that have stayed the same for far too long. But that might feel uncomfortable, and that's the Chiron influence, because Chiron is the wounded healer, and we might find it difficult to assert ourselves, or maybe we feel we're struggling with our independence, or we're struggling with our courage. And so these two together, they're working together to help us to deal with the changes that we need to make. So it's a very powerful aspect, even though it's a minor aspect. The fact that it's repeating so much tells us that this is important. Pay attention. Change is sometimes uncomfortable, but change is necessary. On the 16th of February, Mars will move into Capricorn. Don't forget, Mars is still out of bounds, but he's going to move into a sign where he's considered to be exalted. So in other words, Mars works really well from this sign. So that hopefully might just take the edge off some of that wild or criminal elements of Mars being out of bounds. Now, on a global level, Mars going into Capricorn is very important because it means that it's going to trigger the Saturn-Pluto conjunction. It will reanimate it. So we should really anticipate that some of the themes that have arisen in January as Saturn and Pluto came together will be reactivated around this time. So we will need to keep a close eye on what is going on as far as the situation perhaps between the US and Iran, for example. On a personal level, for each of us, Mars going into Capricorn really is a time for goal setting because we're very disciplined. You know, Mars is our warrior, and Capricorn is quite a strict sign. So we get almost like military feel. Again, that's the thing I was thinking about with the issues with some of the tensions on the planet at the moment as well. But again, on the personal level, this military kind of let's just get it done, follow the rules, follow your orders, and just do what needs to be done. That can actually be very, very constructive. So this is a great time for throwing yourself into tasks that maybe you've been procrastinating over, that you didn't really want to do, that you couldn't concentrate on. Now is the time to get it done. So if you're writing a book or a thesis or a proposal, or you've got a huge project at work that really needs your attention, this kind of thing can be very, very good around this time. We tend to set quite big goals when Mars is in Capricorn, because Capricorn is like the mountain goat. So we kind of want to climb high, and we feel like we can do it. Our confidence is higher when Mars is in Capricorn. So this is great for any kind of aspiration. You know, if you want to achieve, if you want to accomplish, then you can really use this energy very, very wisely during this period. It's also very good for physical fitness and physical training, because Mars is a very kind of active planet. And again, Capricorn is disciplined. And that's what we need. If you need to set up a new exercise program, then this is the energy to tap into, because we're more disciplined to get up early, to go for a run or go to the gym or whatever it is that needs to be done. We just have that fire in us that we're not going to stop. We're going to keep going. We can be very committed during this time. So it's a really great energy for throwing ourselves into tasks or things that we want to accomplish. Now, hopefully Mars in Capricorn might at least give us a bit of an anchor or a touchstone or a rock to lean on when Mercury stations retrograde on the 17th of February. So with Mercury stationing retrograde in Pisces, this can be a bit of a disorientating influence. Again, we've got the idea that we're meant to be listening to our intuition, to guide our decisions, to guide our thoughts. But it could be that we feel a bit confused around this time. Maybe we don't know what to say. We don't know what to think. Maybe communication gets a little bit mixed up. We could get forgetful when Mercury is retrograde in Pisces. So watch where you put your keys and your phone and all that kind of thing. The difficulty is that it's hard to trust the information that's coming through when Mercury is in Pisces, retrograde in Pisces. And we kind of have to feel our way through. We have to feel our way forwards, because the information that we have to hand or the news that we are hearing may be incomplete, or it may be distracting, it may be false. We need to learn to differentiate between what is fact and what is fiction whilst Mercury is retrograde in Pisces. So a lot of what I was saying before about just generally with Mercury being in Pisces applies. It's a very kind of inward transit anyway, but now we've got an accentuation of that with the retrograde motion. So we really need to find that mental peace, that sanctuary within ourselves, so that we can really hear our inner voice, that part of us that knows the difference between fact and fiction, that knows what it is we need to do. So just to be cautious, just to be conscious around this time of what is coming through, how you're feeling, what you're thinking about. Sometimes our thoughts can be very influenced by our feelings as well during this period, because Pisces is a water sign associated with feelings. So things get a little bit muddied. And that is why we need the time to unpick those feelings and those thoughts from one another. As I mentioned before as well, Mercury in Pisces can really accentuate our dream life. And so just being aware of what it is you're dreaming at night, but also what are you daydreaming about? What do you find yourself thinking about when you're sitting on the bus or sitting in a queue of cars or standing in a queue at a shop? Where is your mind wandering to? What does that tell you about your life and where you are right now? Just pay attention. This watery influence is going to continue because the sun will then enter Pisces on the 19th of February. So this is really about stepping into our spirituality and our soul. We've really got a time now of reflection. That's pretty much what this talks about, because the sun is now coming to the last of the signs in the zodiac. Sometimes when the sun goes into Pisces, and thinking about Mercury being in Pisces as well, we do need to rest more. So we're going to have to balance that with the whole Mars in Capricorn, let's get it done, a big job, a big task, let's just do it. We are going to have to balance that with this Pisces influence. So we need to make sure that we're perhaps going to bed early or taking a nap in the afternoon, whatever it is that really helps you to recharge. And we also need to recharge on a spiritual level as well. So we can't just work when we've got this Pisces influence overlaying everything. We do need to have that balance. Now, connected with these themes, on the 20th of February, we're going to have a sextile, the first of 3 sextiles this year, between Jupiter and Neptune. So Jupiter is the old ruler of Pisces, Neptune is the modern ruler of Pisces. So again, we still have this very watery, compassionate influence coming through. So Jupiter increases what it touches. It magnifies what it touches. A sextile is an invitation. We can take it or leave it, but I think we would be advised to take it, because we've got the idea here of an increase in compassion, an increase in the sense of connection. Jupiter is moving through Capricorn, so we know that our growth, Jupiter, our development is quite slow at the moment, but it's also very based on kind of material things in Capricorn. But Neptune being in Pisces, we've got that very soulful spiritual influence. So now it's kind of saying we have an opportunity now to create growth, to build something, Capricorn, to build something that is truly meaningful with Neptune. So we're finding meaning, we're building something that is truly meaningful. We're drawing upon our spirituality, our soul connection, our charitability with one another to create something that is joyful, Jupiter, that is visionary even with Jupiter. So there's a really lovely influence that's just there in the background that we can keep tapping into. And for each of us, how we can use this energy is really looking at our faith and our beliefs, our personal spiritual path. Maybe we want to be developing that more this year. So reading books, following people that you are inspired by, anything on those levels, and increasing your own spiritual practice. This aspect is perfect for that. Mars then comes in on the 21st of February with a trine to Uranus and a square to Chiron. So it's activating that Uranus-Chiron semi-sextile. So the Mars trine Uranus aspect is very freeing. It motivates us to liberate ourselves. We've got a real sense of excitement with Mars and Uranus, but it's just tempered by Chiron. So in other words, we're being very proactive about changes that we want to implement in our lives, and we're excited by the adventure of this. The possibilities are here, but at the same time, maybe we're a little bit scared that we're going to get hurt, or it's not going to happen, it can't manifest, that there's some kind of difficulty. Maybe it's just triggering us. Maybe we feel triggered by stuff that's going on around us. So even though we want to make changes, we want to be proactive in our lives, it triggers us at the same time. But if we are feeling triggered, then that is the thing that we need to pay attention to. What are those triggers? What are those wounds? What are those scars telling us? What else can we do to help ourselves heal so that we can move forwards? On the 23rd of February, we have a new moon in Pisces, and this new moon is going to be conjunct retrograde Mercury. So it's kind of interesting that it gives the impression that any new starts that would normally apply to a new moon may be delayed until Mercury has gone forwards again, has started to move in direct motion again. There's a little bit of a delay because Mercury retrograde is wrapped up with this new moon. So it's a new moon associated with things that are going on in the unconscious, once again to do with spirituality. And there's also a feeling that this is perhaps quite an emotional new moon. Because it's conjunct Mercury retrograde, it's possible that we're getting a lot of old material coming up, old thoughts, old conversations playing on our minds. This is a lot of unconscious material is surfacing. It's on the top of the water now. We can start to see it, and we're not really sure of the picture it's making or the picture that it's creating. We're not really sure how everything adds up, and yet we feel motivated to deal with this sorrow, to deal with this problem or difficulty that we're encountering, because we know that we need some kind of fresh start. it's happening at a really deep level. So it may be very subtle what's coming up around this time, or it may just be coming out in feelings, waves of feelings, like we're riding some kind of wave that is taking us somewhere. We're not quite sure where we're going. Maybe we're feeling a bit lost around this time. But I think it's very important that we trust the process, trust the tide to carry you to where you need to be. This new moon is going to be trying the North Node, the point of spiritual and soul's evolution there in the sign of Cancer. So it's a trine, which is a flowing, helpful aspect. So whatever is occurring around this time is about trying to trust that your feelings have something important to tell you. So again, make time to listen. And listening is very important because on the 25th of February, Mars is going to meet up with the South Node. So Mars can talk of conflict, anger, frustration, kind of going after the things that we want without really thinking of what others need or how it's going to impact others or ourselves. So Mars conjunct the South Node almost kind of indicates this moment where we need to stop. We need to stop doing, and just be and kind of get into the moment. What is happening in the present right now? What am I feeling right now? Where have I been getting stuck? Where have I been holding myself back? Where have I been limiting myself? Where have I been allowing this old conditioning to dictate the goals that I go for and the things that I'm trying to achieve in my life? What's up with that? Where am I really going with all of this? Mars is really activating all of this old karma. We may see some consequences around this time to previous actions that we've taken. That doesn't mean it's necessarily bad. It's just simply we recognize that there are always consequences to our actions. So we need to be mindful of the actions that we are taking around this time. Sometimes it can talk of kind of laying down arms. So if there has been some kind of ongoing conflict, now is the time to let it go. Just let it go. With Mars on the South Node, the fight needs to be over. On the 26th of February, the Sun will conjoin Mercury. So this meeting between the Sun and Mercury marks the midway point of the retrograde period. It unites heart and mind. We have some kind of illumination around this period. So you might find that there is some kind of information that comes through, or it might just be an idea that you have, a revelation. Something is becoming clearer. The whole picture isn't completely available yet because Mercury is still only halfway through the retrograde period, but something is coming to light that we do need to pay attention to. The Sabian symbol for the Sun's conjunction to Mercury is illumined by a shaft of light. A large cross lies on rocks surrounded by the sea. So this symbol brings up the idea of keeping the faith. This is the light. When things don't work out, when there is death, when there are endings, which is symbolized by the large cross, when there are endings, when things don't work as we hoped they would, when we get let down, when we feel defeated, we can't allow that to isolate us. We can't allow that to continue to infect our sense of faith and belief in the world and our personal spiritual path. It's very important that we focus on the light, acknowledge what has gone, but have faith that it's gone for a reason. This concludes my reading for February 2020. I hope you found it helpful, and I wish you many blessings on your path.